This is a recording app because it actually records much better than Zoom.
Oh,
The
okay. Oh,
the video
so,
quality in Fathom is actually much better than Zoom quality.
so I didn't know whether we're doing video or just audio, but that's fine by me.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I thought about recording it with video because um, I think in the group we haven't really decided whether that is really gonna go to just audio or what. So just in case, um,
okay, okay. And I guess the thing before we dive in is to get clear about being on the same page about what we're talking about.
yeah,
Um, as I'm taking this right now, the idea is to have conversations that have the intention of being transformative so that people, when they listen to the conversation or watch it, there's a possibility of something being shifted in their own experience. So I gather that's our intention.
yes, that's what I believe as well.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So I don't even know where to for us to begin other than we'll play with that. I've done this now already with um um the two ladies already. What am I Anne and Sandy. So now I'm hitting us guys.
And
So
how
you're
was
the
the
third
spirit?
one.
Great, great, great. How was the spirit with him?
Well, I had a great time with them, and it was more open ended. And I think as we're now diving into this conversation, is connecting to where you're here before anything else happens is probably a good place to start. And so I could even ask you the question, and I'm reminding myself, am I here? And
Mm,
why is that even important to consider if we want to talk about transformation? And
mm.
anyway, that's kind of where I start from all the time. It seems like noticing, am I really present to this connecting with you here now? Regardless of what we're going to talk about, but it starts with this. And so as I'm saying the words, I see myself needing to slow down a little bit more and just really take my time with this. How about you?
I get it, and I love the question, and I do also might just need to slow down a little bit, especially because my head is still processing a lot of a conversation that I had recently, like 30 minutes ago, and
Hmm.
it's a really great question, Jeff. I mean, more than a question, it's like a beautiful proposal to be absolutely present at what's going on right now here, not necessarily here in our heads, right?
It does bring to mind what are we talking about when we say being present? There's something that's so obvious, and yet there's something very, there's another aspect for me of being present that seems like I'm still wanting more of that. So, in other words, I guess what I'm trying to say, and I feel I'm at a loss of words as what we're trying to point to, is that being here always involves the initial noticing something about how I'm here. But as I notice I'm here, I could be even more here. And so there's something about the demand I put on myself about, am I really here versus I'm here. And I think there's something about that.
I love that, because if I am recognizing that my head is still processing information about a conversation that I just had, it means that I am conscious right now. I'm completely present to it. So being here, being present, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm completely calm and I don't know, free of thoughts on my mind or anything like that. It's like I know where I am right now. I know what I'm processing in my mind. I know that I'm speaking to you, and I know that I'm completely excited about this conversation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I think it's like whatever's going on, that's what's here now. And it means I'm having my thinking, I'm having words I'm saying, and all that. And yet there's this aspirational thing that I am curious about what happens if I can even be even more here? What is that? Is that even necessary to even consider? But I
Mm.
notice from my experience, there are times when I just drop in such a way that there's an expanding sense of clarity, an expanding sense of almost being able to see more. There's something about that begins to arise. And the reason why I'm poking around with this is that I'm really enamored with the idea of a process of how things move or flow, not that we get something. And initially, when we started having these conversations or proposing them, I was looking at the whole idea of going beyond insight. I was using that as a term, as a framing.
Yeah.
And what I was really after in that, it's not so much you get an insight, it's the engagement of being in life that we're talking about. And so there's something about not getting something, not, an end result, but how I step into an ongoing unfolding of my experience. That fascinates me more than got to find something that I have now that will wake me up to really get where I want to be going or something like that, which has been the old way of me thinking about insight at times. So that was a kind of a shift to kind of look into. I'm not trying to grasp at something. I'm trying to enter into a kind of a, lack of a better word, flow. Anyway, that
Hmm.
was what was occurring to me. What about you?
Yeah, that's really interesting because what's coming to my mind is that even having this wanting of something else or wanting to get somewhere else, it's like there is this difference between trying to get somewhere in an unconscious way versus trying to get something or get somewhere being conscious of it. So what I mean about by that is that, um, for example, let's just have a conversation, and it was a really powerful conversation with a very distressed woman, and she she kept saying that she didn't. She basically kept saying that she wanted to die, that she didn't want anything in life, that really she was pretty much praying for her to be gone and die. But although she kept saying that, as we said in the conversation, it was completely obvious that deep down she did want something way more than that. She wanted to create things in her life. She wanted to get back into this excitement. She wanted to have peace of mind. She wanted a lot of things and she wasn't even aware of it. But then being present to it, it actually changed the whole paradigm for her. Because at the
Hmm.
beginning she wanted stuff, but she wasn't aware of it. And so she thought she wanted to die because there wasn't any purpose or anything for her to do. Then as we spoke, she got conscious of the many things she wants to create and the states of mind where she wants to live in. So she realized, oh, I do want things, and that's great. So we, I think we can. I mean, that's it's great if there's something, some place where we want to go or something that we want to get, as long as we are conscious of it. Because if we are conscious, we're present right now.
You're raising an interesting point about how conscious you have to be to know where you're going. And I don't know. I'm poking around on this one, okay? 'Cause I think I
Yeah.
heard what you were sharing, slowing down the interaction with this lady to just look, just notice a little more about what was up, began to help her see, oh, there's something I do want to live for. So that initial noticing. Now, where she needs to go or wants to go, that she has to be conscious about that. I think there's that being conscious about the pull, the feeling of that directionality without what it's supposed to look like. So I'm just teasing out the idea of, yeah, I get reoriented. Like we're talking in our conversations, reminding ourselves often about go to where the source, where these things arise, to go to the formless. Well, you can't even describe what the formless is because it's formless. But I can orient towards the idea of that, even though there's nothing specific you can actually point to in that. It's that kind of thing. And there's something very slippery in that because we get so caught up in the result I want to achieve. But I don't really know what that is until it's achieved. So it's like until I've arrived with that, it's not there yet. It's more I'm just oriented towards looking in that direction. So I feel, it's like slowing it down even further into not what the outcome will be now, what's all the things I want to now accomplish, in this case of this lady, but the feeling of the engagement to even move in that direction. I think that's the place where I notice for myself transformations taking place.
Mm. Yeah, how have you noticed that?
Pardon?
How have
Say
you
again?
noticed it?
Well,
How do you
it,
know
it's,
that
it's
transformation? Yeah.
well, it's as simple as sometimes sitting still. Let's say, I do a sitting practice in the morning, and as I allow my mind, everything to settle, I begin to notice what in me does not seem to settle. So I begin to now investigate the experiencing of not of what is it that I'm where I'm clenching a little bit, where I still hold on. It arises in me noticing what seems to be what's not part of this process of settling. So it's in that way that as I recognize that, I said, oh, I can open to that. I can open to this uncomfortableness of not settling still in some part of my body. And in that, I do that. It's sort of like an allowance of the experience of whatever's happening that seems to allow something to then shift. I'm not the one making it happen. It's more like I begin to recognize how I'm just making myself available as opposed to directing it. It's directing me instead. It's that kind of quality. Does that respond to what you were saying?
Yes, yes, it does. And excuse me. How, how do you how do you actually do that? You some time for yourself to sit down and meditate and think about it, or is this something that actually happens?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me. I can't quite hear you. Okay, if you hear me, you froze right now, so I'm gonna wait it out. I didn't hear anything. You froze on me, so let's try that one again.
Yeah, something happened here. Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Okay. So my question was, is it that you create a space in a day where you sit down to think about it or meditate, or is this just something that happens within the day at any time?
I'm not quite sure because I think that there's both the I have a plan that I will meet myself to sit down and see how am I here. So I explore that. But then, especially, and I'm going to say something that this seems to work for me. If when I have met myself that way, in a way that I have the taste of this really abiding settlement, this kind of a calmness in me. It does prompt an awareness of being that's available to me for the rest of the day too, if I want to. So over the course of the day, something may occur to me. Oh, am I settled or am I here? And then I recognize, oh, that same taste I had earlier in the day is here right now. So it's more like a getting familiar with the recognition of an abiding, ongoing presence that's up to me to be awake to if I choose to. It may at times just hit me over the head, but I think the more intentional I can be to want to be related that way to myself does make a difference. But I don't know what it's going to look like other than there's a, well, I do. I do know something about when I look that way, there's a feel about that that's very, and I think feeling's the name of the game here. As I'm talking out loud, it's not a thing, it's not it's a quality of how, I know this is familiar, this is basic, this is accessible and always available. I'm just normally not paying attention that way. But the moment of reminding myself I could at least kind of re realign with that sensibility in myself. I think you froze again, but it was a nice look.
Get that. I believe so. I can see you, hear you. How about
did
now?
you, but did you hear what I just finished saying? I'm just
I did. I did. I did. Actually, let me change my internet flow and see if this improves. Actually, in a second. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. It's a little garbled, but I'm hearing you.
Okay,
Oh, there you
I'm
are.
back.
Okay, well, you're still intermittently freezing, and okay, now you're gone entirely. Okay, are you back?
Yeah,
You're muted.
looks like yes. Okay.
Well, okay, just carry on as best we're able.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but anyway, I was gonna share with you, Jeff, that the reason I asked the question is because I've seen transformation in many different ways when we talk about in myself. We talk about being conscious and knowing that we are completely covered 24 by 7 by 7 by God or whatever you want to call it, mind, spirit, and also recognizing that our thing, all the three principles like mind, consciousness, thought, and we create our reality with our thinking. What's been transformational for me is that I've seen the change in my own behavior by getting to a point where I know exactly how it works, regardless of how am I feeling in the moment. And let me explain this with an example. Today, actually, before having this conversation with this lady, 2 hours before, right now I am in Spain. I am in vacation with my wife in Spain, and my son is in our country in Costa Rica. And 2 hours before our call, my son got mad at me via WhatsApp, and he pretty much had a fight with me. Not we, he had a fight with me, and he got mad, and he 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 said a lot of things, and at the end of it, like I paused on the conversation, but I was upset, I was mad, I wanted to cry, like I was feeling terrible. My wife was with me. We were visiting a museum when this happened, and then in the moment, I actually lost the excitement for the place and what I was doing, and even forgot that I was in Toledo for God's sake. And then
Mm.
and then I was talking to my wife, and I said, yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling bad. But it's really hard to force my feeling to change or to get back into what it was. It's actually really hard. But deep down, I knew that it was going to change at some point, and I didn't have to do anything about it. My thinking was going to change about
Mm.
it. So I recognized that I was feeling bad, that I was mad, that I was sad. I recognized it. But then I also recognized that it didn't make any sense to fight it because I couldn't just get back to where I was before the discussion we had. So anyway, fast forward a little bit, we went out for a coffee, and then we just walked a little bit, and I knew I was close to the conversation with this lady. And like half an hour before the call, I was still thinking about the thing with my kid. So my mind was like, oh, I don't want to have this conversation. Like I don't feel in a place to having this conversation. But then I knew that I was not gonna cancel this conversation, and I knew that I was perfectly able to having the conversation and impacting this person. So I went into the conversation, and we just spent 90 minutes in a very incredible, powerful conversation with her, which actually happened to help her, impact her, and even myself, and even my wife heard me a little bit because she was in the same close to here, and she was like, so it actually worked out. So to me, the thing is that time ago, the very same scenario, it would just be completely different because time ago I would just stick to the feeling of I'm mad and I'm sad because of my son and everything that happened. And I would probably have canceled the call and I will probably sit down with the feeling and the thinking about the situation with my kid for a very long time. And I will have a crappy time here. I know that would have happened time before, but the moment I really got that this is just gonna go, this is just really thinking in the moment. And I know that now the thinking is crappy and I wasn't feeling good, but it was gonna go. I knew that. And that only that has made a huge difference in my life, an amazing difference in my life. So
That's beautiful, and it's a great illustration of how things can shift. And I think what I was hearing in that, and I could see for myself, it, there's a something is avail. There's an awareness of something. We'll call this our understanding of how things work. And what you're pointing to is that whatever's going on, what I'm thinking, it doesn't stay. It actually, if I really recognize how it operates, I don't tried to change it intentionally, but just it is what it is. It seems to take care of itself. I think it's a very powerful thing because I think, at least from my own conditioning, and probably it's collectively all of us, we think we're supposed to do something about our thinking when it occurs.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we do not have to. We don't have to treat every thought as if it's like life or death. It has to be grappled with. In fact, I think most of it takes care of itself. And I think you're illustrating that through your thing by not holding on to it. Just, okay, it will change. And the reason why I'm sticking on that one idea is that I think in my own mentation, there's certain kind of awarenesses or understandings that have come to me that I use as a touch point to catch myself a little bit,
Yeah.
such as everything's transient. It is not permanent, is a great one. Another one is actually using how it feels to me. If I'm in a crappy kind of feeling state, I now recognize how much it's tied to some pretty bad thinking I'm putting myself through. And so that's one thing. It's just a wake up call to, oh, here, I'm now entertaining something that's now
Yeah.
perpetuating this uncomfortable feeling. And the same token is that feeling just helps me recognize the quality of my thinking. And it's good to make the discernment as to when it's a good feeling and a bad feeling and just go with the good feeling. And I think I'm saying this because for me personally, that's been a big one that, you're supposed to kind of get rid of, this or that kind of thing, but to use feeling as um, a guide to where to hang out with yourself. And you always say, "Well, no, feelings are trivial." And all. No, they're the basic rudder out of which I can re-navigate or or ride this kind of like current. And so it's kind of nice just to recognize it's okay to have a good feeling, number one, and to follow that as a way to things come out in a good way. When I find I'm having a bad feeling and I want to stay in that bad feeling, I just make myself more miserable, it seems. And there's no necessity for that. So I
Yeah.
think that's what we're talking about here about transformation. For me, follow a good feeling usually leads to some very good changes and it's worth pursuing. And so that's what I started resonating with as you shared that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, how important this is, Jeff, because yeah, I believe we are highly conditioned, and I say this because of the work that I've been doing with clients, where I pretty much every day see that we are highly conditioned to fight against the feeling. And so it is like a business owner is fighting because uh, he's stressed and he shouldn't be stressed, but he's stressed because of the money and everything. And then we get to a point of believing that everything that is happening outside is really having us feel something in some way. Just being aware of this, what you just shared, just using the feeling as a warning sign where you can just stop for a second and say, "Whoa, hey, hold on, this is what I'm feeling now. I don't like it. I like this is not helpful. But right now I can think and I can have myself think into something more exciting." And
So for well, I just want to respond to that because I think it's not so much that I'm now going to replace the bad feeling with a good feeling. It's just the recognition of how this thing is operating. And so
uh,
I just am more allowing it to take place without trying to insist upon it should not be here.
right,
And it does. So I think it's really important that we don't try to interfere with the process. It's learning how to ride with the process, in a sense.
totally, totally. But what I believe is that I completely agree with you. Because the bottom line here is not fighting the feelings. Like there's no reason to fight it. Start by recognizing it. But I do believe that the moment we are conscious of it, so we can see it for what it is without any tag or fight to it. I do believe that the moment we see that, it really becomes very easy for us to just let it go and grab another one, which is motorcycle than the other one. So
Yeah,
it's
no, no, that's
just
great.
like,
That's great because that's the kind of thing where even in the noticing, that's why we started this thing off in our conversation about being present, presencing. You know, the initial noticing is enough to already allow for something to change. Again, I don't have to do anything beyond I'm in the noticing. The way I look at it is more like come back, come back to something that's more fundamental in myself that I just settle into. So these are different terminologies, but it's like not where we're trying to manipulate or modify. It's just allowing ourselves to be fully here allows for everything else to occur.
yeah. And by being here, then having enough space in our head, so we can realize what's the next step, the next action, the next thought that actually makes sense to follow.
Yeah, yeah, it'll occur to you. It'll just like over, and like Michael talks a lot about this idea. You know, there was no figuring it out. You know, oh, I'll do this now, and that's
Yeah,
sufficient. I think that's sufficient as opposed to what else do I have to do about that? And I think that's what we're kind of pointing to is where is the most fundamental, simple place from where I can, I guess, operate from because
yeah,
we're designed that way.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. It's like it is it is completely different if you try to make a decision resting quietly in a lake versus if you're trying to make a decision being in the midst of a tornado or a hurricane. So it's like two completely different scenarios, and more than likely you have much better ideas being in the lake. Now, most of the time we feel like we are in the hurricane, and even there we have this sweet spot where we can get to this place that we're talking. Because Jeff, my one of my when I got into this three principles philosophy, and I jumped into it because of myself. I wanted to get the experience of it myself, right? But then as a coach, when I thought about it and about sharing it in one way or another to clients, one of the things that I was kind of at the beginning a bit worried about was um on how people will how will people forget or resonate with the idea of don't worry, it will come to you because we are completely used to be stressed about everything. Like we should know, we should even know about something that we don't know that is gonna occur. So like, it's like people is brainwired that way, and and I really like to reinforce that even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of the hurricane, metaphorically speaking, there is this place in a split of a second we can get there and be quiet enough to listen for the best thought course of action to follow in the moment. So it's like we don't have to surrender to the chaos. Because I think many people would think, well, yeah, it would be great if I am in a beach, or if I'm taking a shower, or if I am in a lake in vacations. That'd be great to have ideas there. But in business, there's no way. Or in the fighting with my partner, there's no way for me to think clearly. And now I think this is the conversation that we're having. That we can get to this place in any moment of our life, regardless of what's going on outside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's not like a special condition that needs to be created or I need to be in a special state of mind in order to. It's we're organized in a way to be responsive. I think otherwise we wouldn't exist as a species or something, whatever that might be. So I think there's something about how to be more responsive rather than I'll say reactive. And the reactivity is usually coming from a place of overthinking something or insisting that my thinking has to be the right way. Whatever that is, it takes me out of the capacity to respond in a very appropriate way. I mean, I really believe strongly that when I'm really settled and coming to this open kind of space within myself, that I inevitably always find an action that's appropriate to the situation. And I think it's almost like we are organized where we're always going to be responsive that way if we just get out of our way in a sense. So it is not a specific thing other than me catching myself not to make it a specific thing that I have to
Yeah.
do. It's sort of like
Yeah.
that kind of quality. Yeah. Yeah.
I just got a question for you, Jeff. Listening to you, you were speaking about, being settled and getting to this place. How would you explain this to a person that is not used to the, you know, coaching or self-development or anything like that? And it's like the first time they are listening to it. I'm really wondering how how would you help someone to to understand what does it mean being settled so we can get these new fresh ideas.
It's hard to say what it is beyond. I think people know when you say, what's the experience of settling? If you start off even using the term settling, it's not something I make myself settle. I allow something. So there's an allowance orientation to this. And allowing does not mean that I only allow certain things, not other things. It's whatever is happening is I give it its space. I let it simply unfold itself. So to me, that's all tied into this settling. There's an allowance. There's a, a lack of me trying to make something occur. So I'm getting out of, if I'm trying to explain to you what it is to settle, it's when I let go of any attempt to shape or control what it's supposed to look like. And
I get
rather,
that.
I stay in front of something which is totally unknown to me. If I could really just allow this not knowing, uh, there's a chance something will show up beyond my normal way of thinking about things. All these
Mm.
things I rely upon about my book knowledge and all these these are kind of like stored things that sometimes might be useful under certain circumstances, or but most of it's just habitual thinking. And so, in being settled, in coming back to just allowing things to drop in a sense, I'm not having to crave after any one idea. But I do notice in doing that, and what I would suggest, and I like what Michael talks a lot about this way, is that it's not like thinking is bad necessarily, but certain qualities of thinking can arise when I am quiet or still, unbeknownst to myself at first, and not by my design. They seem to percolate up, seem to occur. And there might be a variety of them, but it's sort of like, this one seems to taste good. It has a kind of freshness to it, a kind of quality that has a feeling of, if I take that on, there's something that seems to come alive in me. So that we're talking about from whence by the settling down and allowing myself not to try to make anything show up, something does show up. And then if it feels that has a quality about it, it's like I could touch it in a sense of feeling, oh, there's energy in that, there's a life in this. It's probably worth following for a while. So, and I find that's what's been guiding me now. So I haven't quite answered your question about settling as much as there's an implication, because the more I'm operating that way, the more there's less on my plate to have to do, which feel I have less stress in terms of my thinking about things. I'm just available. And I think the big thing for me is through reorienting this way, I get a little more familiar about the kind of outcomes that do happen. And what does happen is that things seem to work out. That's what happens. And I said, "Oh, isn't that nice?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. And you did actually answer the question. At least what I heard, what I was listening to you, I was questioning how beautiful would it be if we really managed to get everybody in the world to forget about forcing or trying to force the idea of creating an answer to everything. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's almost going back to a recognition about the nature of how we're designed.
right,
And that includes going back to, because there's such a emphasis of having good thinking about things,
yeah,
and recognizing thought is so transient. It just comes and it goes. It's an endless stream this way. And there, and I think I'm only saying this now as a reminder to myself again and to us as we're talking, is the thoroughgoing nature of my education, my upbringing, my conditioning to believe that thinking is that important that I need to kind of really get it. And so that's the thing. It's so jarring because of the overwhelming cultural kind of press that we should think our way out of this situation. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, a new thought can come up, but I'm not going to be the one thinking it. It's going to be coming through me. And if I could allow something to arise that just, when it occurs, feels, oh, this is new, that becomes a good opportunity to follow something rather than trying to make my preferred plan. So that's kind of when I'm coming. We keep cycling back on that a little bit there, but recognizing the nature of how thought is.
yeah. And it's interesting, Jeff. I absolutely agree with you, and I believe this is the tricky part right now in terms of most of the issues, situations overall we see happening in the world, like suffering, that unfortunately that I believe most people haven't been trained and they are not aware of how how really do the mind and our life work. How is it that we create our experience of life? And because of this lack of understanding, we really create a lot of imaginary problems and then we try to solve them.
So minor, what's coming to me is kind of a question is that um how am I going to frame this? Well, it almost slipped right by. It is, yeah, why would anybody want to know what this is about, what we're talking about? Why? I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, buddy, so what? That kind of thing. It's something prior to us describing this thing, there needs to be the interest to take a look. And I think that's the starting place, really, to expand this conversation to other people. Why do you want me to take a look even? Why? Because until I'm interested in this idea about how I'm awake, how I can be, and you disappear, there you are, how I can be, um, what, like I know my girlfriend, she's not interested in this, so it's kind of hard to have a conversation around this.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
People, and yet I know when they do get a glimpse, it's like, oh, so either you kind of somehow engage people long enough that they begin to get curious, and what will help them be curious becomes a question, or are they even interested? I know I've been a long-term quester of who am I? What's my? It's been my wish. That's why when I began to come upon Sid Banks kind of teachings and I got turned on. I got turned on because it wasn't something new for me as much as there was an elegance about how I can simplify how I look. So there's something about I have to now roll my sleeves up here and do the good kind of work on myself to become enlightened. I saw a possibility that seems much more available, much easier, and I like the way it's languaged. There's not a whole laundry list of ideas I had to kind of comprehend in order to show up for this. It's so simple. So
That's yeah. That's it, Jeff. It's like yeah. People will not go for through the war asking on yeah I should get these three principal things that you talk about or anything. But most people in the world are trying to figure out something to make their life better, or at least to eliminate suffering from their lives. And what I love about this conversation and what's happening within this understanding, it's nothing else than that. It's an understanding of how life works really. Is that it is actually a simple way to help people eliminate suffering from their lives. And it sounds like crazy. Like I have told some people, look, I don't have problems in my life. Now I just share with you that I had this situation with my kid, and yeah, life happens. Like there are many things happening around, uh, but I don't make them a problem anymore. I used to.
life is not a problem to be solved. It's something to be lived, right? It's almost like that. And if you're gonna live it, yeah, come in and go. I mean, whatever you're gonna do, it's not a uniform thing. There's a variable kind of thing going on here, both in terms of where I'm awake to things and what's going on around me and how I respond to it. And it's not a fixed thing. The world's not fixed that way, and I can always it keeps changing on me and I keep changing too. So there's this kind of uh, movable kind of dancing kind of quality we get into. So it's the engagement of this rather than having to eliminate things because I don't know what's going to happen. I know that, yeah, eventually I'll die, but it's not even a problem. It's
Yeah,
just part of the deal, that kind of thing. And I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that because I like the idea you have to deal with that now. Okay, now how do I live longer? No, when it happens, it happens. And there's something very relieving in having let go of these reins that I think I had to hold on to in order to control the universe. What a burden.
yeah. Absolutely. It just came to my mind this book that although the book is great, just the title is amazing. The book by Byron Katie, Loving What Is. Loving What Is. That's it. I mean, it even sounds, for so many, it might just sound crazy. What do you mean by loving what is? But it's like, even, even if you are going through a difficult situation in life, whatever that is, going through it means that you are alive. So being alive or having a great life doesn't mean that everything is rainbow and unicorns and you know everything is going to be great and no problems at all happen or difficult situations. But it's going to be a balance. And I mean, life is life, period. Some stuff is great, some more is kind of difficult, whatever. But the moment we start learning to love everything that is going on, at least this is what I've seen in my life. The moment I start loving what is, instead of judging it, instead of trying to fix it, instead of complaining about it, instead of fighting it, but just loving what is, the better life I have.
What you're saying, I'm familiar with Byron Katie's work. I've even had a few chances to connect with her. Um, but it's funny because loving what is a beautiful. It resonates. So when I responded and kind of, oh yeah. Most of what she does is now how to get clean, get rid of things obscuring how you can love what is.
Hmm.
And actually, what was occurring to me as you were talking, it's not about what's happening. It's about how I come into a loving in myself. It's like the
Yeah,
more I am awake to this, then anything around me that's easy. It's like I don't.
yeah,
So it's a shift towards taking ownership, if you will, of just me being available to myself even. That was what was occurring to me, as opposed to, oh, that's, I can love that thing out there, I can love that thing out there. But that only comes from, am I loving? Am I in this place from where loving arises in me? What is that? And I feel there's something about that that is like the fundamental ground here. It's, what reason I'm talking out loud and kind of going on is that I say, okay, no matter what's going on, for me to be loving, I start with I just get curious. How is that thing really going? I get interested in almost the minutia of what's unfolding. Like and I'm sharing with you, almost like when it comes to feeling, even within myself, pain. And most people, the first flush of a pain experience is to resist it, try to push it away, change it. But if I get into just looking at the pain experience, I discover it's not a thing. It's actually a changing something. And if I keep just studying it, actually the pain goes away. It may return when I stop attending this way, but it shows you the variability of that. It's not a fixed thing.
Yeah,
It's a process also, and it's variable.
yeah, yeah. It makes me remember this quote. I love this quote by Michael. That we live in the feeling of our thinking, not in the feeling of our circumstances.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at the end, is getting, is really getting to understand this. Whatever experience of life I'm having is based on the feeling of the thinking that I have. The better quality of thinking, the better the feeling. But at the end, it's not what's happening to me. It's what I'm thinking about it.
My hunch is here also is that it's not so much um um I was getting another thing that's a cross current coming in here. Um it took me away. And then maybe that's part of the deal here, okay? Is that
Yeah,
again, the total makeup of who we are and how we change and everything doesn't mean now I see this insight I have about how things work, maybe that I have to keep that front and center to myself. So I'm awake to it. I'm awake to when I'm not, and until I'm not awake to it, we come and
right.
go.
Yeah,
And I think there's something about that that I don't want to give myself um make up make myself feel annoyed about how I've left. It's part of the deal too. There's another mystery here about almost needing to leave sometimes in order to return.
yeah, yeah.
It's this ebb and coming and going, and it's all okay. There's something about that that I'm noticing that allows me to relax because I'll show up again and then I'll leave again.
But
And
the
it's
great
sort of
thing,
like,
Jeff. Sorry to interrupt you, but and yeah, I love what you're saying. And the thing here is that I believe that you are right now in this place where you can recognize that even getting away, coming back is like part of it, and you don't have to fight it. And I believe the same. But I know that time ago, without having this understanding that I'm playing with right now, I will get mad if I get distracted, or I will feel shame or embarrassed or whatever because I got lost. And but now we recognize, well, yeah, this is part of the deal. I mean, this period of grace that we can now allow is actually thanks to the understanding we have about how this works, and that's beautiful.
no, and it almost lends itself to the um, the uniqueness of each of our experiences in a way. That there's something about we're constantly almost enriching our way of being here on this planet. And that does require sometimes a leaving and coming back, an ebb and flow, you know, almost we're retreating more impressions that we chew on or feed on or something like that. And that's fun. It's interesting. It's good. It doesn't mean that's what I have to hold on to, but it
Right.
does add a certain kind of expansion of the richness of this aliveness. That's part of the deal. You know? So I like that. I like the fact that, oh, this is not a negative thing. I'm now mining my field for more richness or something like that. But it's not so much I'm now going on my way to do that. It's occurring now to be here, and then, oh, I'm here again. So I'm enjoying that idea because I'm noticing in my life, I don't give myself a hard time anymore about that. I'm allowing myself to come. I know I'll come back because I want to come back. There's something in me that wants to stay closer to this. And the only thing I was kind of poking around in all this is that I think in terms of transformation, it's not a one-shot deal. It's more this ongoing
Totally.
return to, oh, what else do I notice here? Oh, becoming just engaged in looking more. And it's like Michael told, drip by drip by drip. I know more and more times now over the course of the day, I remember the idea of wanting to be here. Isn't that kind of nice to kind of have a more frequent reminder? Somehow I'm being reminded more frequently, oh, what's it like here now? And I think that kind of desire in me is allowing something to shift because I frequently visit myself that way. I visit the situation I'm in rather than getting lost and absorbed in and therefore identified with the particular activity I think I should be doing.
Yeah, totally, totally. And it's interesting because actually sometimes I get to I get to have a discussion with myself and think even about the transformation word because many times I think about it and I question whether it should be is it really a transformation or is it just a reconnection?
I love say
Because
more. I love what you're saying. I think you're pointing to here. Really, it's interesting.
yeah, because to me this conversation and this whole new experience it's not even about transforming myself, but it's about reconnecting me with myself. So it's not about transforming my habits and my outcomes and my behaviors and then, but actually about getting back to basics, getting back to me. So it's not even, I really, how would you transform the formless?
That's
How do
not what
you
we're doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. You don't transform the formless. There's nothing to transform because there's no form there.
there you go. So it's yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like but well, people will resonate with transformation and change and everything. But at the end, the more we come back to realize, we come back to who we really are, truly beyond our psyche, beyond our conditioning, beyond our small thinking. When we really get there, there's no transformation to happen. It will just there. We got back to us.
So the terminology transformation is misleading, actually. It's really feeding um, the preferred persona or ego kind of framing that needs to be actually gotten suspended or gotten rid of in the service of recognizing if you let go of that. And this is one of the famous quotes that Michael refers to that Sydney Banks talks about. When I can let go of that ego image or that self image, I can come in touch with something much bigger in myself.
Hmm.
Call, when we begin to recognize actually we are God. When we are this kind of like, there's no difference between that. We all have that in common. If we wake up to that, that's the transformation. It's a transformation not of that, but of what we were holding on to that was actually blocking ourselves from seeing this bigger recognition.
But at the same time, it's like if everyone gets there, it's like getting back to the oneness, getting back to we are all one, we are all everything. And so there's not just when I have this I sit down with this train of thought. I think what comes to me when I think about the word transformation, the image that comes to me is the transformation of a butterfly where
Mm.
there is certain form in the cocoon and everything, and then it gets wings and flies. So it's a whole different thing. It was always the same, but now it transformed into a butterfly. So that's the image that I get in the word transformation. But even before that, and even after that, it remains being the same butterfly. So I don't see like I sometimes I feel transformation like, well, this is my version of me, and now I'm gonna transform it to create a whole new, much better version of me. And so I transform myself, and that's not it to me, at least.
No, no, I agree. I'm excited as you're talking this way because it's not about transformation unless you limit yourself to the idea of a form that needs to be changed. We're not talking about that. We're
Yeah,
talking about actually a revelation, revealing or uncovering what's always been here.
right.
And I think the way and that's I shy away from using the term being a transformational coach because I want this what we're pointing to the revelation of the wholeness of who we really are able to be that's always here, you know, and that's not unique to me, so it's not tied to a form. It's to what is in common to all of us, which definitely has to be formless.
I love this, Jeff. Really, I really do. um, because my mind went back to the conversation I had with this woman, and by the end of the conversation, after she made the case of being broken and devastated, because actually she lost her daughter a few months ago,
Mm.
and while I was speaking to her, I tried to get her to, I helped her to explore into who she really is, and I realized that she struggled to. She even said, "Look, this is hard. Like it's hard to think about who am I." And I was like, "Well, it's actually harder to move forward in the world without knowing who you are. It's the moment you get back to realize who you are, and you realize that 99.9% probably, if not 100, of all the pain and problems and everything never existed other than in our head. So it's getting free, getting back to this beautiful place where you can see, oh yeah, this is life and stuff happens, but I'm much bigger than that. And if I don't have to fix
But I
anything in
think that's
myself,
the key.
yeah, but
I think that's the thing is that there's a much bigger kind of something about what I can experience about being being me, that until I even taste that a little bit, it's kind of hard to know what are you talking about? But it's so right under your nose. This is the thing that's so interesting about it's so common place that we don't even like. It's like the air we breathe. I don't give it a thought about I'm breathing air. Well, it's like that. It's so pedestrian, you know. And that's what I'm saying this now because for me, one of the big changes, because I was always hungering after this idea of enlightenment. the big bang of my experience.
Mm.
And now I'm saying, no, it's just moment to moment now,
Yeah,
drip by drip. And it's not like each time I'm getting, whoop, whoop. It's more like, ah, ah, ah. And it's so easily, everybody can have a sigh. There's nothing to hold you back from, ah, that kind of thing. And that's a good direction to maybe to point towards.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think this conversation itself, it's is more than enough to having an enlightenment experience in the moment. It's I really enjoy having this conversation, Jeff, and I believe that anyone listening to this, it would be at least a beautiful invitation to recognize that there is a place beyond our own thinking, and in that
I would
way,
I would
really,
I would definitely recommend that as well. I think that we've touched upon things that are like little um, hints of what you could try for yourself, whoever's listening to this. It's not so much to get, here's another great set of ideas. There's things in what we talked about that you can right now check out for yourself.
right.
You could take that up. You can follow a good feeling. You can just reminding myself, am I here? All these kind of ideas are little prompts that is available to you right now if you want to try. But unless you do that, well, there's some good ideas here. Well, thank
Yeah,
you for this. This has been great. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. I really enjoy having this conversation and looking forward to having some more, my friend.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, actually, I look forward to more. I mean, we could end recording, you'll kind of edit it out or something, but I think this is a start of something good. It's like, from Casablanca, the end of the movie, they talk about, I think it's a start of something, that kind of, I love the fact that we have created connections of each of us. And I would look forward to an ongoing kind of exploration, not because I really want it to help somebody else or not. I want it for myself. I find that when I'm engaged in this kind of camaraderie, something seems to also help me be more available to this life. So I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Me too, Jeff. And I believe in the power of getting together and having this time to express ourselves into this understanding because it just gets much powerful the more we share about it. And I really, honestly, really enjoy having this team together, like sharing with you and Chris and everyone. If we can keep this at least with some frequency, having a conversation between us, one on one
Yeah.
or as a group, it would be really lovely. It would be really lovely.
Yeah. Let's go beyond certification here into this is a joy to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
And
that's
I
wonderful, Tony.
and don't even be surprised if one day I knock on your door down in Costa Rica. I mean, I've been
Please,
wanting to go for a long time, and I'm going to put it out there now as a seed that I have no idea where it goes or what it looks like. But wouldn't it be fun to do something in Costa Rica together?
man, here I am. Well, there I'll be right now in Spain, but there I will be. And whenever you want to go, go ahead. I have a really cool 4x4 truck, and so I can take you some wonderful not tourist places around there, so you can get a real feeling of Costa Rica.
I love it. Love it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, really, yeah. Every time, anytime you want to go, just let me know. I'd be more than happy.
We will be in dialogue about those things in the future for sure. Anyway, be
Okay,
blessed and enjoy your rest of your vacation in Spain. I'm glad you were able to stay up as late as you are doing this, and so thank you.
my pleasure, Jeff. Take care of yourself as well, and talk to you soon.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.